Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a winter storm which is going to be moving from the Rockies into parts of the central and northern plains and potentially clipping parts of the upper Great Lakes. We're going to be timing this out for you guys as well as giving you an idea of what you should be expecting with this winter storm. Behind it, we'll have some brief chillier air, and then we should get warmer air that kind of pushes back through into much of the central and eastern part of the country. So here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. We have some frost advisories in northwestern California, as well as some winter weather advisories in parts of Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, with one little area of winter storm warnings in parts of Montana. We have red flag warnings in effect for southern New Mexico and northeastern Minnesota as well, and I believe these are fire weather watches in effect for parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, and eastern Minnesota. We have wind advisories in effect for parts of Arizona, Utah, Colorado, and a little bit of California as well. And I believe those are air quality alerts in effect for north central Colorado there. So yesterday, the high temperature for the entire continental United States was 13 miles west of Winter Haven, California, where they got to 89 degrees Fahrenheit, and 13 miles east-southeast of Mecca, California, where they got to 89 degrees Fahrenheit as well. So we had a tied high temperature yesterday between two areas, and both of those were in southeastern California, right through here. The national low temperature for the continental United States was in Mount Washington, New Hampshire, where they got to -5 degrees Fahrenheit, and the highest precipitation report or rainfall report was in DeVelo, Kentucky, where they got 2.33 inches of rainfall. A lot of rainfall over much of this area yesterday due to that storm that moved through those areas. We had many reports that were over an inch and a half, and many of these areas, especially as you get back down through these areas, back through eastern Kentucky, southern West Virginia, southern and even central Virginia as well. Those are the areas that really got hit hard with that storm in terms of rainfall. And the high snowfall reports were tied between two areas: Soda Springs, California, where they got 10 inches. So did 3 miles northwest of Donner Peak, California, where they also got 10 inches of snowfall that were reported yesterday. So here's what the GFS model is showing, and we're going to play through this model, and then we're going to show you what a couple of the other models are showing. Now, before we can talk about the actual progression of the storm, we want to kind of show where every single weather system is taking place on this map so far, so we can get a general idea of what's happening in the upper atmosphere. So we have a low pressure that's rising out of Florida and the Caribbean and moving further to the north. This is going to push this storm, which is our main storm, further to the north, because it won't be able to just head out further kind of like this, like it would actually like to do, mainly because of this low pressure to the south, and also this high pressure, which is back through here, which is also going to be kind of pushing this further to the north instead of going straight eastward. We have some chilly air on the backside, which you can see in those blue lines right there. That's indicating temperatures that are fairly chilly for this time of year. And then you can already see where we're dealing with sort of a front of, or kind of a line of storms that's setting up. We have your first system right down here, and then we're seeing, I believe, some sort of secondary system up through here as well. And both of those are connected with the frontal system as well. So this would be by Monday morning. We're dealing with snow back through the Rockies and Colorado. Some of those areas like Denver could get closer to 6 inches of snowfall. So not only the higher elevations, but also some of those lower lying areas that are east of the Colorado Rockies could also get into some of the heavier snowfall. We're dealing with mainly rain, though, for much of the Great Plains by this point. So this is by Monday early afternoon. Here's by Tuesday in the morning. We're dealing with that low pressure, which is by this point in northeastern Kansas. Maybe a bit of a severe weather threat for parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas. I believe they already put a marginal risk out on day 3, which would be for Tuesday, I believe, in those areas. So we will have to watch for this area to get maybe another round of quick severe weather. Definitely nothing like what we saw with that tornado outbreak just a couple days ago. that low pressure is going to continue to move to the north, and it's only by about Tuesday in the early afternoon that the northernmost fringe of the system starts to get hit with a little bit of snow. So you can see that first line of snow starts to set up. Still rain for much of this system and many of the areas that are going to be affected by the storm. If we continue this forward, by Wednesday morning, in the early morning, when it's starting to pull down a lot more cold air because of how dynamic the system is and bringing in a lot more warm air, this is when the system really starts to strengthen, and because it's strengthening again, it can make and can bring down a little bit more cold air. That's what's leading to a changeover to snowfall over parts of Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and some areas even further to the north of there, where we're dealing with moderate or even heavy snowfall, according to the GFS, by this time frame. Also, another unrelated threat, but something that you really want to watch out for. If you live within this area, watch out for closer to 6 or 7 inches of rainfall over the next 7 days. The Weather Prediction Center is indicating 7 to 10 inches of rainfall in some of these areas just because of continuous heavy rainfall for those areas. So if you live within that area, just wanted to notify you guys about that threat of heavy rainfall and make sure that you are taking precautions, and definitely don't drive through any flooded roads if you do encounter any flooded roads. This would be by Wednesday in the early afternoon. That snow is now pretty widespread over parts of Minnesota, Iowa, even creeping into Wisconsin by this point. So you can see the snowfall blankets much of the northern plains, and it's much more of a snowy event as we get to Wednesday in the early afternoon, and that's because the bulk of the warm air has now moved further to the east, so it's dislodged from the cold air, which means that we have a little bit more of cold air wrapping in on the backside. It's a very dynamic low pressure system, so it's going to be very, very hard and interesting to track for these areas. And then by Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, it's pretty much all said and done with. You might still see a few flurries flying around over parts of the northern Great Lakes, mainly from lake effect snowfall. So here's what the European model is showing for snowfall. And then we're going to show you what the GFS is showing. We just looked at the GFS. We're going to start off with the Europeans' snowfall totals, however. So anywhere in the gray, that's what we're looking at, under an inch to 2 inches of snowfall. You can see that we have quite a bit of area covered in at least 2 inches of snowfall. The 2-inch line is in that blue, so 2 to 6 inches in the blues, 6 to 10 inches in the purples. And you can see that we have the heaviest snowfall, especially back through northern Minnesota, and then you get back up through Manitoba and Ontario, Canada. That's where you're dealing with fairly heavy snowfall, over 6 inches in many of these areas. We also want to watch out for a little threat. We'll have some snowfall back through here. I know the Canadian model, which we're not going to show today, but it did have some 1 foot plus amounts over central Nebraska. So there are still a lot of variations of what could happen, and there's a lot of outliers still that we still need to kind of riddle out and try and figure out which ones are actually still going to be the most accurate, and we're going to give you that information when we do get it. Here's what the GFS is showing, and you can see not that much snow back through the central plains, but a lot more snow, especially as you get back through northern Minnesota. It's also oriented a little bit further to the east, and you can see it's kind of a little bit more on an angle in the way that it's oriented. So we see a 6+ inch area for northern Minnesota and much of the northern half of Minnesota, a little bit of eastern South Dakota, and northern Wisconsin, according to this model, is getting hit hard with some snowfall. And then, of course, you see that heavy snowfall back through the mountainous Colorado Rockies in that general area as well. Here's the 75th percentile for snow accumulations through Tuesday morning. So this is basically saying that there's a 25% chance that these amounts are lower than what actually happens, and there's a 75% chance that they are higher, or they are actually higher than what actually happens. I don't really take it that way just because they usually underestimate it on the 50th percentile, so I like to bump it up to the 75th percentile, and in that way you usually get the more accurate total. So I usually just use the 75th percentile. I find it much more accurate than their 50th percentile. You can see they have some amounts that are over 8 inches in parts of Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, as well as some more areas back through into the Cascades of Washington and Oregon. If we move on to the day 4 outlook for the chances of 2 to 3 inches of snowfall. This would be for Tuesday morning into Wednesday morning, and we're dealing with a 10 to 30% chance anywhere within this green area, this lightest green area. And then if you're in this darker green area for a little bit of Canada and northeastern Minnesota, that's where you have a 30 to 50% chance of seeing 2 to 3 inches of snowfall on Tuesday and into Wednesday morning. And then if we look at the probability that you'll see 2 to 3 inches of snowfall on Wednesday morning into Thursday morning, you can see that still parts of the upper Great Lakes are dealing with a 10 to 30% chance. If you get into Manitoba and Ontario, Canada, this is where you have maybe closer to a 30 to 50% chance, even some 50 to 70% chances up there in parts of southern Canada as well. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.